It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccer Files Canada. Welcome to Series 25, looking at the players of Euro 2024. This episode is looking at the players of Romania. Here we go! Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccer Files Canada. I'm Kevin and this is Series 25 on the players of the 2024 Euro Cup. This episode covers Romania's players. We're doing this mediacast in two parts. Part one here is a look at the candidates for the squad and their likelihood of making it. We examine the participation of players in games over the recent period and a few other factors to categorize them into definite, likely, possible but unlikely, and so on. Part two will come out when the squad lists are released and the final squad selected. At that time, we'll go back over the list that we create here and see who made it and who didn't. And we'll also cover things like injuries and surprise selections. So this episode will have three sections. Section 1, where we look at some general information on the team. Section 2, where we cover the main candidates in each position. And Section 3, where we summarize and conclude. Let's begin then, and with some general information on the team. We begin with retirements. Romania has not made a tournament since the 2016 Euro Cup, so we have some just some of the bigger names who were maybe part of that cup but who have retired since. So first one is Razvan Rat. He was with the team from 2002 to 2016 and retired with 114 caps and 2 goals. He was actually a starter in Euro 2008 as well as 2016, although he lost his starting position in that cup. Next we have Bogdan Lobont. He was with the team for 20 years, from 1998 to 2018, and retired with 86 caps. He was part of the Euro 2000 squad and the Euro 2008 squad, not part of Euro 2016, although, he had been off the squad at that point, but did return and officially retired in 2018. So Bogdan Lobont. Vlad Shiricis is our third of 4 here, and he was captain of the team. He played from 2011 to 2022 and retired with 76 caps. Actually, he's still playing club soccer in Romania for Steaua Bucharest, or it's under a new name now, but I call it Steaua Bucharest, and he was the captain and started all 3 games in Euro 2016. He last appeared for the national team in June 2022, so actually not that long ago. And finally, we have goalkeeper Cyprian Tatarussanu. And he played from 2010 to 2020 with 74 caps, and he also is still active, but he moved from AC Milan in Italy to Abha in Saudi Arabia, a bit of a retirement move there. He was the starting goalkeeper in the Euro 2016, and last appeared for the national team in 2020 in November of 2020. So those players now part of Romania's past, but we're more focused on the present here. So let's look at the club affiliations to get a sense of Romania here. And actually this has improved over the years. I'd say about half of the players still play for or do play for clubs in Romania. However, I would say the A team mostly plays outside of Romania. Let's look at the clubs in Romania, though. Steaua Bucharest is now called FCSB, kind of a dull name. That's why I prefer Steaua. CFR Cluj and Universitatea Craiova. Some of the bigger clubs that these players play for. And probably their biggest names are Nikolai Stanciu. He's the captain now. He plays for Damak in Saudi Arabia, but that too is a bit of a retirement team. We'll see what teams he played for when we look at his bio. Razvan Marin, also a big name for them, plays for Empoli in Italy, and that's actually pretty representative of the teams that most of the players play for. We do have a couple of players with big teams. Goalkeeper Moldovan is with Atletico Madrid, and defender Radu Dragusin is with Tottenham Hotspur. Neither of those are that experienced for the national team, but those are good clubs to be on. And as I say, I think Romania's club affiliations are improving over time. So quite a few of them play in Italy, and then a couple in Spain and England and Turkey, I would say, also represented there. Okay, let us go on to look at their recent games. So we're examining the period beginning from the start of 2023, and that is 12 games for Romania. So we'll be looking at players' participations and positions in those games. The last two of those games were friendlies in March of 2024, but all of the others were qualifying games for this cup. And in their friendlies, they didn't experiment that much. We see a couple of new players tried out, but for the most part, it's a pretty standard squad. They also played Andorra a couple of times and made some changes. Again, not big changes in those games. As far as participation in international tournaments, we've kind of said already that they participated in the 2008 Euro Cup and the 2016 Euro Cup. Those are their only tournaments in recent times. But we'll probably go back to 2016. There are only a couple of players really who played in that cup, and most of the squad has come in after that. And yeah, apart from that retired player, I don't think we'll have much need to go back to 2008. Okay, let's look at their formations over the period. So their primary formation is a 4-1-4-1. They've used that in I think 5 of the 12 games, so 42% of the time. We'll call it roughly half, even though that's a bit generous. But just because the other two formations really are 25% each, a 4-3-3 and a 4-3-3 and a 4-2-3-1. Both of those. Hang on, my graphics are not working here. Both of those used in 3 of the games, so 25% of the time. So that rounds out nicely. And then we do have one formation, which I will put on the board. Usually we kind of group them, but one time a 3-2-2-2-1. So that would be 8% of the time. And I did want to add that one because it's the only time they used a 3-man back line. That was in the 4th game of the period. But otherwise, the 4-1-4-1, 4-3-3, and 4-2-3-1, which we'll mention throughout the media cast here, all have a 4-man back line. So that remains the same. But each of them has basically a different midfield formation. 2 of them having 2 lines of midfield, and the 4-3-3 with just 1 line. But again, we'll keep you informed as we go through because that affects the positioning of the players. All right, well, the last order of business is to look at their upcoming friendlies. These are coming soon. On June 4th, they play Bulgaria at home. And on June 7th, they play Liechtenstein at home. So pretty easy opponents for overall. And Romania will, well, I'll be interested to see some of the positions which seem undecided right now, who plays in those positions. Okay, let's move on to section 2 and our look at the candidates. So we begin with manager Edward Iordanescu. And I'll just give a little bio of him and then talk about the managerial situation over the past few years. So Iordanescu is manager of Romania since 2022. Prior to that, probably the two biggest clubs in Romania, Steaua Bucharest and CFR Cluj. That was actually a second stint with CFR Cluj. Otherwise, it's been all clubs in Romania except for CSKA Sofia in Bulgaria. He himself was a player in Romania from 1996 to 2004, but not an international. Not an international player. Actually, his claim to fame is something different, and you'll find out soon, because we'll begin the history from 2016 Euro Cup, which they qualified for, and the manager at that time was Edward's father, Angel Iordanescu. He was manager during that tournament. He resigned after their last place finish in the group stage. They earned only a single draw with Switzerland there. After Iordanescu, or Angel Iordanescu, three managers came and went from 2016 to 2022. The third of those, Mirel Radoy, had actually done fairly well in 2022 World Cup qualification. They finished third in the group, but just a point behind second place. Nevertheless, in January 2022, Edward Iordanescu took over the reins and led them through a really successful qualification campaign for this tournament. They went undefeated. I think they tied 3 games, and they finished in first ahead of Switzerland, who they had tied in the cup in 2016. So actually finished ahead of them this time. So Edward Iordanescu leading Romania through the cup here. Let's go on to our candidates, the players, and begin with goalkeepers. So we'll begin by naming all of the players. And if you see their name, if you're following the YouTube here, if you see their name in gray, like Horatiu Moldovan here, that means they do not have tournament experience. So that'll be most of the players here. Anyway, Horatiu Moldovan, a definite candidate, and no likely candidates, but we have several possible ones. The first of which is Stefan Tornovanu. Actually, I'm going to put a different player ahead of him. I'm going to put Florin Nita as the next candidate, because he's a bigger part of the narrative. So Florin Nita, and then Stefan Tornovanu. Next we have Marian Ioni. He is nevertheless out with an injury we'll come back to. We have a possible but unlikely candidate in Ionut Radu. And then the player who is retired, well, we'll put him as retired, even though he's really too far gone to be in this list, because we're only looking at players who are kind of candidates for this cup. Anyway, Cyprian Tatarusana, who we will say they did have. They do seem to have kind of ongoing struggles to replace that starting keeper in the 2000 Euro Cup. They are trying to replace him, and that's pretty much the narrative. But let's look at the candidates before getting to that story. And Horatiu Moldovan started 9 of their 12 games since the start of 2023. He was on the bench for 3 others. And oops, I was supposed to start with his biographical information. So he's 26 years old and has 10 caps since 2022, so most of them in 2023 there. And he recently moved from He recently moved to Atletico Madrid in Spain from Rapid Bucharest in Romania. That was in 2024. So a good move there for Moldovan, and doing well with the team, starting 9 of their 12 games. Next, we have Florin Nita, the first of several possible candidates. He is 37 years old, and he's been with the team since 2017, so joined a bit late there, and has 20 caps with the national team. He's with Gaziantep in Turkey since 2023, Sparta Prague in Czech Republic for 5 years before that. Over the recent period, Florin Nita has started 1 of their 12 games. That was the second last game that he started. He was also on the bench for 7 and not selected for 4 matches. Next is Stefan Tornovanu, and he is 24 years old. Yes, 24 years old, and he plays for Steaua Bucharest in Romania. He has 1 cap with the national team since 2022. So he hadn't started any games during this period, Tornovanu, but he was on the bench for 7 games, and with the under-21 team for 2 games, and not selected for 3 others, including the last match. So Tornovanu, a possible candidate. The third of the possible candidates is Marian Ioni, and he doesn't have any caps with the national team. He's 25 years old, and he plays for Rapid Bucharest in Romania since 2024. Faro Constanta also in Romania before that. He got his first appearance on the bench way back in 2021, but still doesn't have a cap, didn't get any starts here, but was on the bench for 5, including the last match, but wasn't selected for 7. And that makes him almost unlikely. It's really just being on the bench for that last match that makes him a possible candidate. But pushing him down towards unlikely is a hamstring injury from late April. So for the last month of the season, we looked at a different site, or actually a different place on our main source, which now is calling it a thigh injury. So we have both of those codings. Anyway, it's an unknown return date, so perhaps we can update that in part 2, but Marian Ioni looking less likely. Ionut Radu is our possible but unlikely candidate. He's sometimes called Andre Radu, and he has been with the team since 2002 with 4 caps. He's 28 years old, and he plays for Inter Milan in Italy since 2019, or at least is on their roster in his second stint with them, actually. And Radu is actually currently loaned to Bournemouth in England since 2023. So Radu actually started the first 2 matches here, and then he was not selected for 6 others, including the last 2 matches. We'll learn a bit more about that in the summary, which actually I'm ready to go to. So let's summarize the situation with goalkeepers. As we just saw, Ionut Radu played in the first 2 games of 2023, but then was out for surgery. Really, though, he was only just being tried out as a starting keeper. I think he played the last 2 games of 2022, but none before that. It was actually Florin Nita who had had the lead role as the keeper for over a year in 2021 and 2022, but apparently they weren't satisfied with him because Radu was tried out, and then after his injury, Moldovan took over, and he is the lead keeper now. He played all of the games since except for 1, when Florin Nita returned for a start, and that was a friendly in March of 2022. So it seems like Moldovan is the backup keeper, and perhaps Florin Nita, it seems like Moldovan is the starting keeper, and perhaps Florin Nita has taken over from Radu as the backup keeper. Okay, on to defenders, and we look at central defenders. We have two definite candidates here, and the first one is Andre Burka, and the second one is Radu Dragusin. No candidates coded as likely here either, so we go to three possible candidates. Ionut Nedelciaru, Bogdan Rasovitan, or Rakovitan, and Adrian Russ. Those three possible candidates, and they have lost the services of veteran Vlad Chirites, who we introduced in the first section of the team since June 2022. Okay, let us look at these candidates. So Andre Burka is 31 years old, and he has 27 caps and 1 goal since 2020, so a bit late joining the team there, around 27 years old. He joined, and he plays for Al Oqdoud in Saudi Arabia, which seems a bit of a retirement club. He was with CFR Cluj before that and always played in Romania. However, he has started all 12 of their games since the start of 2023, so still playing at the top level with his national team. Radu Dragusin is 23 years old, and he has 15 caps since 2022, no goals for him, and he plays for Tottenham in England since 2024. He was with Genoa in Italy for a year before that, and with Juventus in Italy for 3 years from 2020 to 2023. And he too started all 12 of the games since the start of 2023. So there we have it. The possible candidate, first one is Ionut Nedelciaru, and he is 26 years old, been with Romania since 2018, and has 26 caps and 2 goals. He plays for Palermo in Italy since 2022. Nedelciaru started one of their 12 games since the start of 2023. He was actually subbed in for the last one as well, on the bench for 2, but not selected for 8 matches. However, his recent participation has us putting him as a possible candidate. Next is Bogdan Rakovitan, and he is 24 years old. Brand new to the team since 2024, so 1 cap. Actually got his first appearance in October of 2023 on the bench, and didn't start any of the remaining 6 games, but he was subbed in for 1 in March 2024 there, and on the bench for 3, and not selected for 2. So that boils down to a possible for us. And I should probably put him behind Adrian Russ, because Russ has more experience with the team. Adrian Russ is 28 years old. He has 19 caps and 1 goal since 2019. And he plays for Pisa in Italy, but is on loan to Paphos in Cyprus since 2023. He started one of their games since the start of 2023. He also subbed in for 1 and was on the bench for 5, but not selected for 5 matches, including the last one. So Adrian Russ, also a possible candidate, but as I said, seems a little higher in the pecking order than Rakovitan there. And we can summarize the position now. So it's almost always a 4-man central defense, as we saw. Just one time did they play 3 at the back. Yes, that formation just happening one time. So Burka and Dragusin played all the games in what's probably the easiest analysis of central defense that we've ever done. In the one game with a 3-man backline, Nedelciaru joined that solid pair of Burka and Dragusin. So we'll expect to see them starting in the cup as well. And we move on to the position of left back. Here we have no definite or likely candidates, just beginning with possible candidates. And the first one is Nikusor Banku. And we also have Raul Oprut. And then we have three possible but unlikely candidates: Andre Borza, Andres Dumitrescu, and Mario Camora, who did start one game. And then two players seemingly off the squad: Valentin Tico and Alan Tosca. Right, so let's take a look at these players. Nikusa Banku is 31 years old. He has 34 caps and 2 goals since 2017, and has played for Universitate Craiova for 10 years now, since 2014. He started 6 of their 12 games over the recent period. He was injured for the first 2 and not selected for 4 others, including the last 2 matches. So after starting 6 matches during the period, we're not sure what that means, that he was not called up in March 2024. The other possible candidate is Raul Oprut, and he is 26 years old. He has 4 caps for the national team and plays for Kortrijk in Belgium since 2023. So Oprut has started 2. That was the second game and the second last game. Hope I didn't confuse things there. Of their 12 games, and he was on the bench for 1, injured for 1, and not selected for 8 matches. So Raul Oprut, we're really kind of not sure what to make of his participation, so we kind of average it out at the possible level. And next we have 18-year-old Andre Borza. He doesn't have any caps for the national team. He plays for Rapid Bucharest in Romania since 2023, and he first appeared in October of 2023 and didn't start any of the remaining 5 games, but I think he was on the bench for 1, and then with under 21 and under 19 teams, which is tantamount to not being called up. So Andre Borza just sticking his head in the door, but we may see him more in the future. Andres Dumitrescu also has no caps for the national team. He plays for Slavia Prague in Czech Republic, and he got his first appearance in November 2023, and he was on the bench for 1, then not selected for the last 3 matches. So also just sticking his head in the door. I should put Mario Camora first on the list here, because he did start a game during this period. So Mario Camora is 37 years old, and he actually has 10 caps for the national team since 2020. So quite interestingly, joined the team at 33 years old there, but did get 10 caps. And if we marveled at Banku being with Craiova since for 10 years, Camora has been with CFR Cluj in Romania for 13 years now, since 2011, and he played in Portugal before that. As I said, he did start 1 of their 12 games during this period. He was on the bench for 2 games and out for 3 games with what seemed a recurring injury there, not selected for 6 others, including the last 4 matches. So possible but unlikely, just like the others. And let's go to the candidates who seem off the team. Actually, I'll just throw their names out and maybe come back to them if they appear on the final squad. So it's Valentin Tiku and Alan Tosca, both of those not appearing for the team for a while. Okay, let's summarize the left back position. So just 2 possible candidates here. And the position began quite unsettled with three different players playing the role over the first three games. However, the fourth player, Banku, seemed to get a grip on the position and played it 6 times in a row. However, a different player appeared again in each of the last two games, and Banku was not called up for those games. So right winger Sorescu, who we're going to meet a few times here, started twice in the position. Actually, one of them was as a left winger in that 3-2-2-2-2-1 formation. He started twice in the position in the first half, while Oprit also started twice, once near the beginning and once near the end. Two other players had single appearances in the position, including right defender Mania, who we're going to meet immediately here. Okay, that is the left position, and let's go to the right back position. And it strikes me that I forgot to introduce the position itself, so I'll do that quickly here. Romania used a four-man defense in 11 of the 12 games. So in all of those games, there's two central defenders, a right back and a left back. In one of the games, the right back and left back pushes up to become a midfielder. So let's look at the candidates. We have a likely candidate here. That's Andre Raciu. And we have a possible candidate. We've just mentioned him. It's Christian Mania, who played on the left one time. And we have Vasil Mogos, who appeared only one time in this position, which we'll talk about. Andre Raciu then is 25 years old, and he has been with Romania since 2021, 16 caps and 1 goal, and he plays for Rayo Vallecano in Spain since 2023. He was with Huesca and a bigger club, Villarreal in Spain, from 2019 to 2021 with Villarreal. And Raciu has started 6 of their 12 games over this period, and he was on the bench for 5 and injured for 1. So actually, in terms of being called up to the squad, I should probably put him as a definite candidate, but I'll leave it where it is for now. Next candidate, Christian Mania, is a possible candidate, 26 years old with 26 caps and 2 goals since 2014. He plays for CFR Cluj in Romania, his second stint with them since 2020. And as I say, been on the team since 2014, so might have been a selection for 2016 Euro Cup, except he wasn't selected there. And he started 5 games, 5 of their 12 games over this recent period, on the bench for 2, but injured for 5 others. So we have him as a possible candidate. Finally, we have Vasil Mogos. He's 31 years old, joined the team in 2019 and has just 5 caps and no goals. He also plays for CFR Cluj in Romania since 2023 in his case, and he played for 3 other teams whose name begins with C, and all of those were in Italy, Crotone, Chievo, and Cremonese, or Cremonese, I should say. So he favors teams that begin with a C. Mogos returned after a 2.5-year absence fairly recently in November 2023 and started 1 of their remaining 4 games. Was on the bench for 2 and not selected for the last match. So Mogos a possible candidate here. All right, let's look at the position. So Raciu started the first match, but Mania took over for the next 4 matches. The position was then mostly Raciu, though 2 players stepped in for 1 game each. One of those was Mogos in, I believe it was the second last game. It was. And right winger Sorescu, who we've met as a left back and even as a left winger, pops up again here for one of those games. So Raciu, the main candidate there, and we move on to the midfield. And before we talk about the defensive and central midfielders, let's talk about the position a little bit. So almost half of the games had a 4-1-4-1 formation. So that is a stopper role, a very defensive midfielder standing in front of the defense. Otherwise, this position had 2 or 3 players, and those players could be defensive midfielders, central midfielders, or especially in the 4-3-3, there's usually an attacking midfielder in there. So we're going to see it sometimes a little difficult to untangle all of this, but we will get there. So let's look at the defensive midfielders, and then we'll summarize the stopper role. So here we have a likely candidate in Vladimir Skretiu. Skretiu is 24 years old. He has 4 caps for the national team since 2023, so really joined fairly recently. He's with Universitatea Craiova. I'm just going to say Craiova in Romania, his second stint with them. In between his 2 stints, he was with Genk in Belgium for 2 years. Skretiu got his first appearance in June 2023 and started 4 of their remaining 10 games and on the bench for 4. But he was injured for the last 2 matches. And I don't know if it's that injury continuing, because I have in my notes here that he was out with a muscle fiber tear from mid-April. Oh yes, I remember. It seemed a recurrence of an injury in mid-March. That was the injury that kept him out of the international games. And perhaps that injury even goes back to late January. Skretiu is no longer on the injury list. However, he didn't play for his club until up to and including the end of the season. So if he's recovered, even if he is recovered, his game fitness may be a concern. So we'll add him to the injury list at the end, but hopefully we'll get an update on him. He might pop up in the June friendlies there. Next player, also an injury concern, which I'll get to, but first I'll introduce him. That is Tudor Baluta. He's 25 years old and has 12 caps and no goals since 2018. And he plays for Faro Constanta. That seems to be a team moving up in Romania. He's been with them since 2022 and was with Brighton in England prior to that for 3 years, although he was loaned out by Brighton. Baluta started 2 of their 12 games over this period. He was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 1, but injured for the last 4. Not selected for 4 others. So normally we would have him, or we do have him as a possible candidate, but the injury may lower him. We have him out from late November 2023 with an abductor injury, and then out for surgery since mid-February. So that was quite a while ago. He's no longer on the injury list, just like Skretiu. But he too has not played for his club. So again, we'll have to check on him. Again, game fitness may be a concern if he didn't play for his club for all of that time. Okay, our third possible candidate is not injured. It's Adrian Sutt, and he's 25 years old. Brand new to the team since 2024. He got his first cap then, and also his first appearance was in March 2024. He didn't start either of the games, but he was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 1. So with recent participation like that, we can't but put him as a possible candidate. And I realized I forgot to actually introduce these candidates, so I'll go over that again. We had Vladimir Skretiu as possible, Tudor Baluta as possible, both of those injury concerns, and Adrian Sutt as possible. And we also had Andre Artian, or we have Andre Artian as possible but unlikely. And he got his first appearance in November 2023. I'm not sure I think he was on the bench for one game. Anyway, I won't go into detail because he's possible but unlikely, and perhaps we can, or we will actually introduce him in more detail if he makes the final squad. Okay, let's, before we move on to central midfielders, we look at this stopper role. So once again, it was in 5 of the games. And it was the central midfielder, Razvan Marin, who we'll meet soon, who played it twice. That was once at the beginning and once at the end. Screțiu here, the defensive midfielder, played the stopper role twice in the middle, and central midfielder Marius Marin played it once. So despite it being a very defensive position, it's actually central midfielders playing it as well as Screțiu here. Okay, let's meet those central midfielders. And the 2 players I introduced there, Razvan Marin and Marius Marin, are both definite candidates. And the 3rd candidate here is Alexandru Sicaldau, and he is likely. So we'll introduce these players. Razvan Marin is 28 years old, and he's been with Romania since 2016 with 54 caps and 4 goals. I don't have any note on him for Euro 2016, so perhaps he was too new to the team to be a consideration. But Razvan Marin has started 8 of their 12 games since the start of 2023 and subbed in for 2 besides. The only 2 that he missed were due to injury. So we have Razvan Marin as a definite candidate. I'm always going to say his first name because we confusingly have another central midfielder called Marin, and that's Marius Marin. He's also a definite candidate, and Marius Marin is 25 years old and has 16 caps and no goals since 2021, and he plays for Pisa in Italy since 2019, and I don't think I mentioned that Razvan Marin also plays in Italy with Cagliari. Okay, so both of them playing in Italy, both of them definite candidates, and both of them named Marin. In the case of Marius Marin, he started 4 of their 12 games, so half as many as Razvan. But he was subbed in for 4 and on the bench for 4, so he was called up for all of the matches, and that's why we have him as a definite candidate. Our likely candidate, Alexandru Sicaldau, is 26 years old, and he's been with Romania since 2018, 36 caps and 4 goals, and he plays for Galatasaray in Turkey since 2021, but was on loan to Konyaspor in Turkey since 2023. Sicaldau started 3 of their 12 games over the recent period, subbed in for 5 and on the bench for 4 others. So we could very well have him as a definite candidate in terms of he is always called up, but we have him as a likely candidate because he starts a little less than the others, although it's just 1 match less than Marin, so I can't really justify myself. Anyway, all of them at least likely to be called up. Now we can look at the positions of defensive central midfielders in general, and as I say, the 4-4-3 is a little difficult because there's only 1 line of midfielders, so a bit hard to separate defensive, central, and attacking midfielders. So all of these players, all of the players I mentioned as stoppers, that's Razvan Marin, Marius Marin, and Screțiu. All of those players also played in other formations, and they were joined by several other players in really no discernible pattern. So the best way to analyze this is to just give the player and the number of times that they started in the midfield, in a defensive role at least. Razvan Marin had the most with 8 starts, and we do include those 2 starts as a stopper in that count. Screcchio and Marius Mazdan both had 4. Sikaldau had 3 and Baluta had 2. Both of Baluta's starts near the beginning. Another prominent figure was attacking midfielder Stanciu, who we'll meet later. He played more, or I'd say he played equally as much as an attacking and central or defensive midfielder. But anyway, we're going to introduce him as an attacking midfielder the way he's coded, because we kind of think of him more that way. So the main player then here, Razvan Marin, and Screcciu and Marius Marin also significant, although Screcciu may be out. Whew, that was a tough one to deal with. And we also have to deal with left and right midfielder because they use a 4-3-3 formation. So the left and right. However, we have no candidates in this position, and we did kind of cover it in the above discussion. So the only thing we'll say here is any pattern that we notice. So we do see that Stanciu, the attacking midfielder who we'll meet soon, played all 3 games in the 4-3-3 formation as a left midfielder. On the right, it was Razvan Marin twice and Marius Marin once. So a bit of a pattern there with left and right midfielders, but I'm sure you'll come out of this mediacast seeing the midfield as a big jumble in your mind, kind of the impression I have too. However, it's far more clear further upfield, and we move on to left attackers here. And we've kind of created this position. The position can be a winger, and it is in their favorite 4-1-4-1 formation. It can be a left attacking midfielder, as it is in the 4-2-3-1 formation, which they used a few times, or it can be a left forward in the 4-3-3 formation, which they used a few times. Okay, so one time they used a 3-man defense, so the wingers were played by the left back and right back to simplify things a bit. Okay, let's look at the candidates. So on the left attacking side, we have Florinel Coman as a likely candidate. We have Denis Dragus as a likely candidate. And we have Valentin Mihaela also as a likely candidate. And that's all we have over here, 3 likely candidates. So let's go back and look at Florinel Coman. He's 26 years old and has 13 caps and 1 goal since 2019. And he plays for Steaua Bucharest, or FCSB, in Romania since 2017. So a real Steaua man there. He started 7 of their 12 games, did Florinel Coman. Since the start of 2023, he subbed in for 1 and was on the bench for 2. And the only matches he wasn't selected for were the first 2 matches of the period. So we consider him a likely candidate here. Next, we have Denis Dragus. He's actually coded as a forward, but we moved him to left attacker here because his only 2 starts were on the left. Dragus is 24 years old and has 9 caps and 2 goals since 2018, so not used that much as a starter. He plays for Standard Liège in Belgium since 2019, but he was loaned to Gaziantep in Turkey since 2023. Dragus returned after an 11-month absence in October 2023 and started 2 of their remaining 6 games. I think those were the first 2. Subbed in for 2 and on the bench for 2 others. And as I said, both of those as left attacker. Our third candidate is Valentin Mihaela, and he's 24 years old. Been with Romania since 2021 with 19 caps and 4 goals. And he plays for Parma in Italy since 2020. He was loaned to Atalanta, a bit of a bigger team, in 2022. And Mihaela was their top scorer in qualifying with 3 of their 16 goals, including quite spectacularly 2 late goals for a 2-2 draw in Switzerland. There, actually, he's tied as a top scorer for his team. So Mihaela, bit of a hero in that Switzerland game, and he started one of their 12 games over this period. I don't know whether he scored those games in his start or as a sub, because he was subbed in for 8 games and he was injured for the first one and not selected for 2 others. So Valentin Mihaela, almost always called up, so we have him as a likely candidate. Okay, that is the candidates for the left attacking position. Let's just look at what's happened over the period. Actually, the right winger man who we're going to meet right away, that is Dennis Mann, started the first 2 games in this position, and then Coman took the role, ultimately playing just over half of the time. He was challenged for the position when Dragus came in for 2 games, but Coman did return to the position. Valentin Mihaela started in the last game. It'll be interesting to see in June who the starter will be there. Over on the right side, we have a definite candidate in Olimpiu Morutan, but he is an injury doubt, so we'll talk about that. And we have Dejan Sorescu. We've seen him kind of starting all over the field. And we have Dennis Mann, we just saw starting on the left side, but is actually a right winger and a possible candidate here. So Olimpiu Morutan is 25 years old, and he has 15 caps and 1 goal since 2021, and he plays for Ankaragucu in Turkey since 2023 and was with Galatasaray in Turkey for 2 years before that. Actually just for 1 year, because he was loaned out in the second year. Morutan started 5 of their 12 games during this period. He subbed in for 5 and was on the bench for 2, so he was always called up. And he is, I was going to say an injury doubt, but now I see he's actually out due to injury, an Achilles tendon rupture in late April, and not expected back until December of this year. So certainly not going to be recovered for the Cup. So a big loss to them of a definite candidate. That opens up the door, though, for Dejan Sorescu, who is 26 years old and has 16 caps and no goals since 2021. And he plays for Rakow Częstochowa in Poland since 2022, but was loaned to Gaziantep in Turkey since 2024. Sorescu has started 4 of their 12 games over this period. He was subbed in for 3 and on the bench for 3, so just 2 matches that he wasn't selected for. Finally, we have Dennis Mann. He's 25 years old, and he has 22 caps and 7 goals since 2018. And he plays for Parma in Italy since 2021 and was with Steaua Bucharest for 5 years before that. He started also 5 of their games since the start of 2023, but he only subbed in for 1 and was on the bench for 2. He was injured for 2 and not selected for 2 others. So we have him as a possible candidate, but with Morutan out, I think both Sorescu and Mann have a better chance of reaching the squad than we have portrayed here. Anyway, let's summarize the position. It was Morutan and Dennis Mann and not Sorescu, but attacking midfielder Hagi. Those 3 players rotated the position throughout the period. Morutan started a bit more than the others. Morutan, he started 5, but attacking midfielder Hagi and Dennis Mann each started 3. We also saw that Dennis Mann started twice on the left, and we're going to see that Haji also started in other positions. And Sarescu, I can kind of summarize him. He's coded as a right winger, and we did leave him here. But in his 4 starts, he started in 4 different positions as a left back, a right back, and a left winger, kind of the left back position, pushed up to a winger, and he's coded as a right winger and started here too. So quite versatile. And yes, with Morutan out, it does improve Sarescu and Mann's chances, but also we see we have another candidate with attacking midfielder Yanis Haji, who we're going to meet right away here because we're moving on to central attackers. And here we actually have 2 of our biggest players for the squad, Captain Nikolai Stanciu as a definite candidate. We have met him because he was in the central/defensive midfield as well. And Yanis Haji, who we also just met as a right attacker, and he is a definite candidate over here. And finally, we have or not finally, we have Darius Alaru as a likely candidate and Florin Tanase as a possible candidate. So we begin with Nikolai Stanciu. He's the captain of the team. He's the only one who played in the Euro 2016 squad. I think. I don't remember introducing another player who did. And he has been with Romania since 2013. He's 31 years old, and he has 68 caps and 14 goals. I said in the introduction that he has been with some bigger teams. That is Sparta Prague in Czech Republic and Anderlecht in Belgium. I got to confess, I thought it was bigger teams than that. But those are fairly decent clubs. But now he's with Damak in Saudi Arabia, definitely a retirement club, as was the club in China, Wuhan 3 Towns he played with in 2022-23. So anyway, Nikolai Stanciu definitely still big status with the national team here. In fact, he was a co-top scorer in qualifying with 3 of their 16 goals. He started all 12 games during this period, Nikolai Stanciu, so definite candidate and leader of the team. Yanis Haji is 25 years old. He has 33 caps and 5 goals since 2018. And of course, he is son of the famous George Haji, who made a huge mark in the 1990s for the national team. Yanis Haji was born in Turkey because his father was playing for Galatasaray at the time. Yanis Haji plays for Rangers in Scotland, and he's played in Belgium and Italy as well, never in Turkey, where he was born, though. And he returned after a 19-month absence, so about a year and a half there, came back in June of 2023 and started 4 of their remaining 10 games, subbed in for 5, and was on the bench for 1 more. So off the team, but upon his return has been called up every time, Yanis Haji. The likely candidate is Denis Alaru. He is 26 years old and has 16 caps since 2021, no goals for him. He plays for Steaua Bucharest since 2020 and has started 1 of their 12 games, but he was subbed in for 7 and on the bench for 4 others. So Darius Alaru, a likely candidate, although not often a starter. And finally, Florin Tanase. is 30 years old, and he has 19 caps and 3 goals since 2014. Not a consideration, it seems, for the Euro 2016 squad. I don't have any note on him there, but he was on the team for 2 years before. He also, we saw another player with Al Oudud in Saudi Arabia. He's also with them and played in the UAE before that, but primarily was with Steaua Bucharest in Romania from 2016 to 2022. Tanasi hasn't started any of the games over the recent period, but was subbed in for 3. That includes the last match, and was on the bench for 2 games, but not selected for 7 matches. Anyway, some recent participation there for Tanasi, and we have him as a possible candidate here. Let's summarize the position of central attacker, and the position is primarily used in the 4-2-3-1 formation, which they use 3 times, so definitely there. Players also may have appeared in the 4-1-4-1 formation, and we did see Stanciu. Well, he appeared in all 12 games, so we did see him in a more defensive role. But he always appeared as one of the middle attackers in that 4-1-4-1 formation. There, one of the middle midfield, central midfield or attacking midfield players. Okay. Oh, and in the so we'll talk about the 4-2-3-1 formation here, because we already talked about the midfield in other formations. In the 4-2-3-1 position, the position formerly exists, central attacking midfielder. It was Stanciu twice and Hagi once there. So those are playing in their coded positions. Finally, we move on to the forwards. We don't have any players coded as secondary strikers, and so it's forwards, and we have a definite candidate in Denis Alibek. And likely candidate in George Puskás. And then we did have Denis Dragus here, but we moved him to left attacker because he started there and never as a forward. And we have a possible but unlikely candidate in Daniel Burlegia. So let's look at the candidates. Denis Alibek is 33 years old. He has 37 caps and 5 goals since 2013, and he plays in Qatar from Waythir in Qatar since 2023, and that looks like a bit of a retirement team as well. He actually was part of the 2016 Euro Cup squad. He was a substitute there and went on to start game 3 there. So he got 1 start in that cup, and he started 7 of their 12 games over this period. He was subbed in for 3 and on the bench for 2 others. So Alibek always selected for the squad and starting more than half the time. George Puskás is 28 years old, and he has 41 caps and 11 goals, so a good count there. Been with Romania since 2018, and he plays for Genoa in Italy since 2023, and actually is on loan to Bari. His second stint with Bari in Italy since 2024. But he did play for Reading in England for 4 years before that, and in from 2013 to 2019 had 2 stints with Inter Milan in Italy. So he was their top scorer in Euro Cup 2020 qualifying, 5 of their 18 goals there. Over this recent period, he started 4 of their 12 games, has Puskás, and he subbed in for 3 and was on the bench for 1. But 4 matches he wasn't selected for. So George Puskás, a likely candidate. And finally, we have the possible but unlikely Daniel Burlegia. And he got his first appearance in September 2023. He did start 1 game, one of their remaining 7 games and was on the bench for one. But for 5 of the matches, he was missing, 2 due to injury and 3 due to non-selection. So Daniel Burlagia, an outside chance of making the squad, we think. Okay, so let's summarize first of all the position and then the players in it. So Romania always has a single forward during this period. You may be saying, hey, what about the 4-3-3 formation? We regard that as a single forward with a left attacker and a right attacker. And in fact, it is the left attackers and right attackers who we see even in that 4-3-3 formation. So just the one position to be filled here. Alabak and Puskás alternated throughout the period, but ultimately Alabak started 7 times and Puskás 4 times, and Burlagia got 1 start. That was against Andorra. Okay, that brings us to the end of our look at the players, and let's move on to section 3, where we have our closing thoughts. So basically, this is a kind of a typical smaller European team. So they don't have a huge pool of players to choose from. When they get injuries, that can be quite bad because they may not have the replacements for them. So the injuries is a concern here. But overall, Romania seems to be getting better. Their impressive qualification for this cup and the quality of teams on their club and their club affiliations seems to have gone up. So I'm feeling positive about Romania going into this cup. Let's go quickly through the list again that we've created and see if we can identify definite starters here. So we can say so of Edward Iordanescu, the manager, who will not be let go at this late stage. The goalkeepers, it's probably Horatiu Moldovan, although he only started 9 of the games. That was the first 2 where he wasn't selected. So Moldovan looking like the starter here. The backup seems to be Florin Nita, having taken over the position from Ionut Radu. I don't want to get into that discussion again. What am I doing? Central defense, one of the easiest analysis that we've ever done, because Andre Burka and Radu Dragusin started all 12 games as a pair, and just for 1 game and a 3-man defense, another player came in. So those will definitely be the central defenders. On the left back position, a little hard to tell because different players played it, and I'm just kind of actually going back to see if I nominated a candidate here, but I don't think so. We have Banku is only a likely candidate, and he was not selected for the last 2 games. So he seemed the most likely candidate, but he's only a possible candidate. He seemed the most likely, but was gone for the last 2 games. So no one on the left side. Andre Ratiu is a decent shout as a starter on the right side, but he did only start half of the game, so we're not confident enough to say that he's going to be the starter, so we'll have to leave that one blank as well. Defensive midfielders was a bit of a snake's nest, I gotta say, but emerging from that snake nest was probably Razvan Marin as the most likely starter among them, and Vladimir Screciu was a likely candidate, but he looks like he's going to be out injured, so we can't highlight him. I guess the remaining player, Marius Marin, is probably the next more likely, but I'm not nearly ready to say that he's a starter. So we move on to the left attacking position, and we have Florinel Coman, and he started more than half of the games but he seemed to be challenged a couple of times in the position, and in the last game, Valentin Mihaela played the position. So maybe I would highlight Florinel Koeman in blue. That's a bit of a cop-out there, but it's as close as we can get, because we can't say he's a definite. On the other side of the field, we might have chosen Olimpiu Morotan, but he is out, injured, and we'll review that shortly. But that leaves us really confused. So I'm looking forward to the June games to see who starts over there. And it could be central attacker Yanis Hagi playing on the right, because he did sometimes here. But here we have two candidates who are definite. Nicholas Stanchu, the captain, will definitely be a starter. He started all of the games during this period. Yanis Hagi, I would say he's likely, given that the right winger position is kind of open now, but I'm not confident enough to highlight him. Even in blue, I'm going to try to give up the blue. I'm going to try to wean myself off the blue highlight. Among the forwards, Denis Alabek and Puskás. I got to go back to blue, because I think Alabek is definitely the favourite there, but ultimately they kind of rotated in the role. So no, I'm just going to highlight Denis Alabek. Oh, the shame I feel at equivocating with the blue highlight. Okay, we're going to move on to injuries here, and that'll be our second last order of business. So we've divided them into how likely they are to make it back. So we have one player who's completely out of contention, and that is Olimpiu Morotan. That's a big loss for them, because he was a definite candidate. Even though he started less than half of the games, he was always selected. His injury, an Achilles tendon rupture in late April, puts him out until December of 2024. So no chance of him coming back. And we have goalkeeper Marian Ioni as an unknown there. He's out with a hamstring injury from late April with an unknown return date. So we may be able to update him in the upcoming section. And we also have two defensive midfielders, Tudor Baluta. Actually is off the injury list. This is true of both of them. Not on the injury list anymore, but was injured right up until the end of the season. So even if their injury is resolved, their fitness would be a concern. So we're going to put them, both of them, as an unknown. The other one is Vladimir Screciu. So both of those players not tagged as injured anymore, but a concern. So maybe we'll be able to update that in the part 2 of the podcast. And our last order of business is previewing that. So when we do that, which won't be too long from now, we'll go through our list again and point out any notable non-selections. So that would be likely or definite players that don't make the squad. Any surprise inclusions, including new players, there's always that possibility, and usually there are. And then we'll update those injuries if we have any more information. That would be great. We may even be able to touch on the friendlies that are played in June. So we hope you join us for that, and I hope you enjoyed this look at Romania. We would like to thank Mike Kripak, Big Sound Music, and Pixabay for the wonderful background music called Dance 90s accompanying this mediacast.